Picture this. You're sitting in a room full of people who are counting on you. Your palms are wet. Your chest feels like someone parked a car on it. And your mind, your brilliant, capable, hard-working mind, goes completely, terrifyingly blank. Not because you didn't prepare, not because you don't care, but because nobody ever taught you what to do when pressure shows up at your door. 5 to 15 seconds, fast setup. Here's something that might sting a little. The most talented person in the room is rarely the one who succeeds. It's the one who can stay composed when everything around them is on fire. It's the one who can think clearly when chaos is loudest. It's the one who has learned, through practice, through failure, through deliberate training, how to use pressure instead of being destroyed by it. And that person, it can be you. 15 to 30 seconds, re-hook plus cliffhanger. But before we get to the good stuff, I need to tell you something uncomfortable, something most motivational content will never say out loud. The reason pressure keeps winning against you has nothing to do with your talent, your intelligence, or your work ethic. It has everything to do with one specific thing you've been doing wrong your entire life. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's go. Chapter 1. Why pressure breaks most people and why you were never the problem. Let me start by saying something I genuinely mean. You are not weak. If pressure has knocked you down before, if you've frozen in important meetings, said the wrong thing in an argument, made a terrible decision when the stakes were high, that doesn't make you inadequate. It makes you human. It makes you someone who was handed a test they were never trained to take, and that's not your fault. But here's the thing. From this moment forward, it becomes your responsibility. So let's talk about what's actually happening when pressure breaks people down. Because understanding the why is the first step toward changing the what. The comfort zone trap. Most of us spend our lives, consciously or not, engineering our days to avoid discomfort. We take the safer job. We avoid the difficult conversation. We scroll past the challenge and settle for the familiar. And on the surface, that feels like peace. But underneath, we're slowly building a mind that has no idea how to handle real pressure when it arrives. Your mind, just like your body, only gets stronger when it's challenged. A person who never lifts anything heavy will struggle when they're asked to carry something that matters. A mind that's never been pushed will crumble the moment life pushes back. Here's a metaphor that might sit with you. Imagine a greenhouse plant versus a tree that grew up in the open forest. The greenhouse plant is beautiful, controlled, protected, but take it outside in a storm and it snaps. The forest tree, it grew strong because of the wind. Every storm made its roots go deeper. Every pressure made it more unbreakable. Most people are greenhouse plants, and nobody told them that's what they were becoming. What actually happens in your brain when pressure hits, your brain does something fascinating and completely unhelpful if you don't know how to work with it. Your amygdala, which is essentially your brain's internal alarm system, detects a threat and fires off a cascade of stress hormones. Your heart rate climbs, your breathing shortens, your muscles tighten. And here's the part nobody warns you about. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thinking, clear decision-making, and emotional regulation, gets functionally hijacked. In plain terms, Pressure literally makes you temporarily less capable of thinking clearly. Not because you're not smart, but because your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do, trying to protect you. The problem is, your brain can't always tell the difference between a lion chasing you through the jungle and your boss asking you an unexpected question in a meeting. Both feel like threats. Both trigger the same alarm. And without training, both send your rational mind offline at exactly the moment you need it most. The thought spiral that makes everything worse. When pressure arrives, most untrained minds do something that makes everything exponentially harder. They catastrophize. One mistake becomes, I always mess things up. One moment of freezing becomes, I'm not cut out for this. One difficult conversation becomes, everything is falling apart. And once that spiral starts, it feeds itself. Fear creates more fear. Doubt creates more doubt. The mind becomes its own worst enemy, manufacturing threats that don't exist and magnifying the ones that do. Here's what I want you to hold on to. The pressure itself is rarely the problem. It's the story your mind tells about the pressure that breaks you. Two people can walk into the exact same high-stakes situation. One sees a threat. One sees a test. Their external circumstances are identical. Their internal experiences are worlds apart. And the only difference is how their minds have been trained to interpret that moment. The mistake of trying to eliminate pressure. Here's something that trips up a lot of genuinely well-intentioned people. They spend enormous energy trying to feel less pressure. They meditate, hoping to feel nothing. They avoid high-stakes situations, hoping to stay comfortable. They tell themselves, I just need to calm down. But that's not actually the goal. And chasing that goal is what keeps them stuck. Pressure isn't something to eliminate. It's something to work with. The nervousness you feel before something important isn't a malfunction. It's your system preparing. It's energy looking for direction. And the moment you stop trying to make it disappear and start learning how to channel it, everything changes. Champions don't feel no pressure. They feel it just as intensely as everyone else. The difference is they've trained their relationship with that feeling. They've learned to hear the alarm and instead of running from it, ask, okay, what do I do with this? Pressure reveals, it doesn't create. One of the most liberating things you can understand is this. Pressure doesn't create your weaknesses. It reveals them. And that's actually a gift, even when it doesn't feel like one. When pressure exposes a gap in your mental game, that gap was always there. The pressure just made it visible. And now that you can see it, you can work on it. Now you have a map. Now you know exactly where to build. The people who grow the most through pressure aren't the ones who handled it perfectly. They're the ones who looked honestly at what it revealed and used that information to become stronger. That's what this journey is about. Not performing perfectly under pressure, but building a mind that knows how to respond with clarity, with courage, with composure, even when everything around you is loud and uncertain and hard. You weren't born broken. You were just never given the tools. That changes now. The hidden cost of avoiding hard things. Let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention in personal development conversations. Every time you avoid a hard thing, every time you step back from a challenge, decline the opportunity that scares you, choose the easier path when the harder one was calling your name. You're not just missing an experience. You're sending your mind a message. And that message is this: we can't handle hard things. Your mind is always listening. It's always taking notes. And the more times it receives that message, the more deeply it believes it. Until one day, pressure arrives. Real pressure, the kind that matters. And your mind, well trained in the art of avoidance, does exactly what you've been teaching it to do. It looks for the exit. This isn't a character flaw. This isn't fate. This is conditioning. And just like any conditioning, it can be changed, but only if you're willing to start sending your mind a different message. One deliberate step at a time. Think about someone you admire, someone who seems to stay calm when everything around them is chaotic. Someone who makes good decisions under fire, who speaks clearly when others are stumbling over their words, who seems almost comfortable in situations that would send most people spiraling. You probably look at that person and think they're just built differently, that they were born with some kind of mental armor you weren't given. But here's what's almost certainly true. They weren't born that way. They were forged that way. Through experience, through failure, through choosing discomfort when comfort was available, through thousands of small moments where they could have retreated and didn't. The gap between you and them isn't talent, it's training. Pressure is personal, and that's the key. Here's something that took me a long time to truly understand, and I want to give it to you now so you don't waste years figuring it out the hard way. Pressure is not objective. It is not a fixed quantity that exists independently in the world. It is entirely created inside your own mind. Think about public speaking. For some people, standing in front of a room of 50 people is genuinely exciting. They feel energized, alive, focused. For others, that same situation triggers full-blown panic. Same room, same audience, same 50 pairs of eyes. Completely different internal experiences. What's different? Not the situation. The interpretation of the situation. One mind has been trained, consciously or not, to see that room as an opportunity. Another mind has been trained to see it as a threat. And because your body responds to what your mind believes rather than what's actually happening, those two people will have completely different physiological experiences of the exact same moment. This is both humbling and incredibly empowering. Humbling because it means you can't blame the pressure for how you feel. Empowering because it means you have far more control over your experience of pressure than you've ever been told. You can train your interpretation. You can rewire the story your mind tells when stakes get high. And when you do, when you genuinely shift how your mind relates to pressure, the external world doesn't have to change at all for your internal experience to transform completely. The preparation gap. There's one more reason pressure breaks people that we need to address honestly before we move forward. Most people are underprepared for the moments that matter most. Not underprepared in terms of technical skills or knowledge, though that can be a factor too. Underprepared mentally. They haven't thought through what they'll do when things go sideways. They haven't rehearsed their response to unexpected challenges. They haven't built a mental framework for navigating uncertainty. So when pressure hits and the situation doesn't go according to plan, and in high-stakes moments, it almost never does, they have nothing to fall back on, no internal protocol, no practiced response, just a panicked mind trying to improvise in real time. Champions prepare differently. They don't just prepare for success, they prepare for difficulty. They ask themselves, what's the hardest version of this situation? What could go wrong? And if it does, what will I do? What will I think? How will I respond? They rehearse the hard version, not just the ideal version. So when difficulty arrives, as it always does, it feels familiar. Their mind recognizes it, and instead of panicking, it says, I've been here before. I know what to do. That's not luck. That's design. What comes next? Here's where we're headed together over the next chapters, and I want you to feel genuinely excited about this, because what you're about to learn isn't theory. It's practice. It's real, applicable, life-changing mental training that you can start using immediately. We're going to talk about how champions think about pressure, the specific mindset shifts that transform it from something that breaks you into something that builds you. We're going to talk about how to train your thoughts, build a pressure routine, stay present when everything is screaming for your attention, and develop the kind of unshakable confidence that actually gets stronger when things get hard. We're going to talk about mistakes, how to make them, learn from them, and refuse to let them spiral. We're going to talk about stamina, focus, body-mind connection, and what it actually looks like to perform at your best when the stakes couldn't be higher. And we're going to do all of it together, honestly, without pretending it's easy, without toxic positivity or empty slogans, because you deserve real tools, not just inspiration. You've spent long enough feeling like pressure is something that happens to you. It's time to learn how to make it work for you. Let's keep going. Chapter 2, The Mindset That Turns Pressure into Power. Let's start this chapter with a question nobody ever really asks out loud. What if pressure wasn't the problem? What if the problem was never the pressure itself, but the lens you've been looking at it through? Because here's the truth that champions understand at a bone-deep level, the truth that separates the people who thrive under fire from the people who crumble beneath it. Pressure is not an obstacle. It's information. It's energy. It's an invitation. And how you respond to that invitation determines everything. The lens you've been using. Most of us were handed a very specific lens for viewing pressure early in life. Maybe it came from a parent who panicked when things got hard. Maybe it came from a school system that treated mistakes as failures rather than feedback. Maybe it came from a culture that celebrated effortless success and quietly shamed the struggle it took to get there. Whatever the source, most people walk into adulthood carrying a lens that says pressure equals danger, and when your brain believes something is dangerous, it responds accordingly, with fear, with tension, with the desperate urge to escape. But here's what nobody told you. You can change the lens. You can train yourself to look at the exact same moment of pressure and see something completely different. Not through denial, not through false positivity, but through a genuine, practiced, intentional shift in how your mind interprets high-stakes situations. This is what the champion mindset actually is, not the absence of fear, not immunity to nerves. It's a different relationship with those feelings entirely. Pressure is a privilege. I want to introduce you to an idea that might feel strange at first, but stay with me because this one genuinely has the power to change everything. Pressure is a privilege. Think about it this way. Pressure only exists where something matters. You don't feel pressure over things you don't care about. You don't lose sleep over decisions that have no consequences. Pressure is the feeling that arrives when the stakes are real, when what you're doing actually means something to you, to others, to the world around you. Most people spend their entire lives trying to arrange things so they never feel too much pressure. They play small. They stay in their lane. They avoid the situations that matter most because those are the situations that feel the most frightening. But in doing so, they also avoid the situations where the most growth happens, where the most meaning lives, where the most significant versions of themselves are waiting to be discovered. Champions don't just tolerate pressure, they actively seek it out. Not because they enjoy suffering, but because they've learned that pressure is where they become who they're truly capable of being. They understand that the discomfort of a high-stakes moment is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something important is happening, and important things deserve to be shown up for fully. The shift from threat to opportunity. Here's the single most important mindset shift you can make when it comes to pressure. Stop seeing it as a threat and start seeing it as an opportunity. This isn't just motivational language. There's real science behind it. When your brain perceives a situation as a threat, it activates what psychologists call a threat response. Your body tightens. Your thinking narrows. Your creativity drops. You become focused on avoiding loss rather than pursuing possibility. And in that contracted state, you perform well below your actual capabilities. But when your brain perceives the exact same situation as a challenge, as an opportunity to demonstrate what you're made of, something completely different happens. Your body activates, your focus sharpens, your energy increases, and you begin to access capabilities that simply aren't available when you're in threat mode. Same situation, different interpretation, completely different performance. The question is, how do you actually make that shift when everything in your body is screaming that this is dangerous? The answer is practice. Deliberate, consistent, patient practice. You train your mind to reframe pressure situations the same way you'd train a muscle, through repetition, through challenge, through gradually increasing the weight until the new response becomes automatic. And it starts with a simple but powerful question. Instead of asking, "How do I get through this?" you start asking, "How do I use this?" What champions actually feel. I want to be honest with you about something because I think it matters more than almost anything else I could tell you in this chapter. Champions feel pressure deeply, intensely, sometimes overwhelmingly. The difference isn't that they feel less. The difference is that they've learned to feel it differently. They've trained themselves to interpret the physical sensations of pressure, the racing heart, the heightened alertness, the surge of adrenaline, not as signs of danger, but as signs of readiness. Imagine a surfer paddling out toward a massive wave. Their heart is pounding. Their senses are razor sharp. Every nerve in their body is alive and firing. An untrained mind would call that feeling fear. The surfer calls it focus. They've learned, through thousands of hours in the water, that those sensations mean their body is ready to perform at its highest level. That's the reframe. That's the shift. Your nervous system doesn't actually feel the difference between excitement and anxiety. The physiological experience is remarkably similar. What changes is the label your mind puts on it, and the meaning you attach to that label. Start telling yourself, I'm not anxious, I'm activated, my body is preparing me for something that matters. Say it enough times in enough situations, and your mind will begin to believe it. And when your mind believes it, your performance will reflect it. Failure is data, not verdict. One of the most damaging beliefs that weak mindsets carry into pressure situations is this: if I fail here, it means something permanent about who I am. That belief is a performance killer, because when failure feels like a verdict on your worth as a person, every high-stakes moment becomes existential. The pressure isn't just about this presentation, this conversation, this decision. It's about whether you're fundamentally good enough. And that weight is too heavy for anyone to perform well under. Champions have a different relationship with failure. They see it as data, as feedback, as a message from reality about what needs adjustment. When something goes wrong in a pressure situation, the champion mind asks, what does this tell me? What can I learn? What do I adjust? Not, what does this say about me? Am I not cut out for this? Should I give up? This shift from verdict to data is one of the most liberating things you can do for your pressure performance. Because when failure loses its power to define you, you stop being afraid of it. And when you stop being afraid of failure, you stop performing in that tight, contracted, terrified way that almost guarantees poor results. You start performing with openness, with curiosity, with the kind of relaxed confidence that only comes when you genuinely trust yourself to handle whatever happens, including the hard stuff. The decision that changes everything. I want to leave you with this before we move into the next chapter, because I think it's the foundation everything else rests on. At some point, maybe today, maybe right now as you're reading this, you have to make a decision, not a declaration, not a vague intention, a real, committed, felt decision. The decision is this: I will no longer run from pressure. I will train for it. I will seek it out. I will use it. That decision doesn't mean you'll never feel afraid. It doesn't mean pressure will suddenly feel easy. It means you're choosing a different relationship with difficulty. You're choosing to be someone who leans in rather than backs away, who sees the hard moment as the important moment, who understands that the most meaningful growth of your life is waiting for you on the other side of the very things that scare you most. This mindset isn't something you either have or you don't. It's something you build day by day, challenge by challenge, pressure situation by pressure situation, and it starts with that decision. Have you made it? Good. Because in the next chapter, we're going to talk about the most powerful tool you have for performing under pressure. And it's something you carry with you everywhere, every single day. Your thoughts. Chapter 3. Train your thoughts. Because your mind is either your greatest weapon or your worst enemy. Let's get into something that most people completely overlook when they think about performing under pressure. They focus on skill, on preparation, on strategy, all of which matter enormously. But they ignore the thing that determines whether any of those skills, preparations, and strategies actually show up when the moment arrives. Their thoughts. What you think in a pressure situation is not a passive experience. It's not background noise. It is the operating system running your entire performance. And if that operating system is full of fear, doubt, catastrophic predictions, and worst-case scenarios, it doesn't matter how talented you are or how hard you've worked. The performance will suffer. But here's the genuinely exciting part. Your thoughts are trainable. Your internal dialogue is not fixed. The way your mind speaks to you under pressure is not your destiny. It's a habit, and habits can be changed. The moment awareness becomes everything. The very first step in training your thoughts is one that most people skip entirely because it sounds too simple to matter. Awareness. Before you can change what you think, you have to actually notice what you're thinking. And that sounds obvious until you realize that most people under pressure are completely unconscious of their internal dialogue. They're not observing their thoughts. They're being swept away by them. They're so inside the experience that they've lost the ability to step back and see what's actually happening in their own minds. Here's a practice that can begin changing this immediately. The next time you feel pressure building before an important meeting, before a difficult conversation, before a moment that matters, pause for just a few seconds and ask yourself one question. What is my mind doing right now? Not to judge it, not to fix it immediately, just to see it, to name it, to bring it from the unconscious into the conscious where you actually have some influence over it. You might notice your mind catastrophizing, jumping straight to the worst possible outcome. You might notice it time traveling, replaying past failures or projecting into a frightening future. You might notice it getting personal, turning a situational challenge into a statement about your worth as a human being. Whatever you find, just notice it, because awareness is the beginning of control, and you cannot redirect what you cannot see. The catastrophe spiral and how to interrupt it. Let's talk about catastrophizing specifically, because it's one of the most common and most destructive thought patterns that emerges under pressure. Here's how it works. Something goes slightly wrong, or you imagine that it might go slightly wrong, and your mind immediately begins constructing the most catastrophic possible chain of consequences. One stumble in a presentation becomes getting fired. One difficult conversation with a partner becomes the relationship ending. One moment of uncertainty becomes proof that your entire life is off track. The spiral happens fast, and once it gains momentum, it's incredibly hard to stop because each catastrophic thought generates the next one, and your emotions respond to the thoughts as though they're already real, which generates more fear, which generates more catastrophic thoughts. But here's the interrupt. It's simple, it takes practice, and it genuinely works. The moment you catch your mind beginning to spiral, you do two things. First, you name what's happening. Not dramatically, just clearly. My mind is catastrophizing right now. Naming it creates distance. It separates you from the thought, reminds you that you are the observer of your thoughts, not the thoughts themselves. Second, you redirect. not to forced positivity, not to pretending everything is fine, but to a specific, actionable question. What do I actually need to do right now? Not what might happen, not what went wrong before. What needs to happen in this moment, with this breath, in this next minute? That redirect is the beginning of what champions call process thinking, and it's one of the most powerful tools you'll ever develop. Process thinking, the champion's secret. Here's a distinction that will fundamentally change how you perform under pressure once you truly internalize it. Outcome thinking focuses on results, on winning or losing, on success or failure, on what others will think, on consequences. Outcome thinking under pressure is almost always destructive because it puts your mind in a place where it has no control, the future, while the actual performance is happening right now. Process thinking focuses on execution, on the next action, on what you're doing, not what might happen because of it. Process thinking keeps your mind exactly where it needs to be to perform well, in the present moment, engaged with the task at hand. Think about a musician performing on stage. An outcome-focused mind is thinking, I hope I don't mess up the bridge. What if I forget the lyrics? Everyone is watching. What will they think if I make a mistake? Meanwhile, the music is happening right now, and the mind is somewhere else entirely. A process-focused mind is thinking, feel the rhythm, listen to the band, this note, then this note, then this breath. Fully present, fully engaged, fully capable. The performance quality between those two minds, in the same body with the same skills on the same stage, will be dramatically different. So how do you train process thinking? You practice it in low-stakes situations first. When you're in an ordinary conversation, practice focusing on what's being said right now rather than what you'll say next. When you're working on a project, practice focusing on the paragraph in front of you rather than the entire document. When you're exercising, practice focusing on this rep rather than how many are left. Small moments, consistent practice, until process thinking becomes your default. So that when pressure arrives and your mind wants to jump to outcomes, you have a well-worn path back to the present moment. Pressure mantras, words that anchor you. There's a reason athletes, performers, surgeons, and soldiers use specific phrases to keep themselves grounded under pressure. It's not superstition. It's neuroscience. Words activate neural pathways. The right phrase, practiced enough times in the right context, can literally shift your brain state within seconds. It becomes an anchor, a shortcut your mind has learned to follow back to composure, clarity, and focused execution. These are called pressure mantras, and building yours is one of the most practical things you can do to improve your performance under pressure. A good pressure mantra has a few key qualities. It's short, ideally 5 words or fewer. It's present tense and action-oriented. It's personally meaningful to you, and it focuses on process, not outcome. Some examples that work well for many people: 1 step, right now, or breathe and execute, or trust what you've built, or simply, I'm ready for this. The phrase itself matters less than the practice. You need to use your mantra in low-pressure situations repeatedly, during training, during ordinary moments of mild stress, so that by the time you're in a genuinely high-pressure situation, your mind already knows where that phrase leads. It's already been conditioned to follow it back to center. When chaos hits and your mind starts to scatter, your mantra becomes the thread you follow back to yourself, reframing the physical sensations. Here's something that trips up even people who've done significant mental training work. They've learned to manage their thoughts, but they haven't learned to reframe the physical sensations of pressure. And those sensations, the racing heart, the tight chest, the dry mouth, the heightened awareness, can feel so overwhelming that they override even well-trained thought patterns. So let's reframe them right now, together, so that the next time they arrive, you have a different story ready. Your heart rate increases under pressure because your body is pumping more blood and oxygen to your muscles and your brain. It is literally preparing you to perform at a higher level. That pounding in your chest? That's your body saying, I'm taking this seriously. I'm getting ready. The butterflies in your stomach are your digestive system slowing down so that energy can be redirected to the systems that need it most for performance. It's not weakness, it's prioritization. The heightened awareness, the sharpened senses, the feeling that everything is slightly more vivid and immediate. That's your nervous system bringing you more fully into the present moment than you are in ordinary life. Your body is not betraying you. It is preparing you. The question is whether your mind will interpret those preparations as a threat and contract, or as readiness and expand. Practice telling yourself in moments of pressure activation, my body is getting ready. This energy is here to help me. I'm being prepared, not attacked. Say it until it becomes the first thought that arrives, because the first thought sets the tone for everything that follows. Building your mental training practice. I want to end this chapter with something practical because everything we've covered here only becomes real through consistent practice. Mental training is not something you do once when you feel motivated. It's a daily practice. Small, consistent, intentional. Like physical training, the results compound over time. The mind you have 6 months from now is being built by the thoughts you choose to practice today. Start with 5 minutes each morning. Sit quietly. Bring to mind an upcoming situation that carries some pressure and deliberately practice your process thinking. Notice any catastrophic thoughts that arise. Name them and redirect to the question, what do I need to do? Practice your mantra. Rehearse the physical sensations of pressure and practice reframing them. Then take that practice into your day. Every mildly stressful moment becomes a training opportunity. The traffic jam, the unexpected question, the awkward conversation, each one is a chance to practice staying present, redirecting your thoughts, and building the mental habits that will serve you when the stakes are genuinely high. Your thoughts under pressure are not beyond your control. They are not just something that happens to you. They are something you can train, shape, and ultimately master. And a trained mind in a pressure situation is the most powerful competitive advantage you will ever have. Chapter 4. Build a pressure routine that keeps you grounded when everything feels unstable. Let me ask you something personal. What do you actually do in the moments right before something important? Before the meeting that makes you nervous, before the conversation you've been dreading, before the performance, the pitch the decision, the moment that carries real weight. Do you have something, a specific, practiced, reliable something that you turn to? Or do you just hope for the best? White-knuckle it through the anxiety and pray that the good version of you shows up. If it's the latter, you're not alone. Most people have no pre-pressure protocol whatsoever. They walk into high-stakes situations completely at the mercy of however they happen to feel that day. And when they happen to feel anxious, scattered, or overwhelmed, which under real pressure is most of the time, they have nothing to fall back on. Champions do something fundamentally different. They don't leave their mental state to chance. They build it deliberately. And the tool they use to do that is something we're going to spend this entire chapter on. It's called a pressure routine. And it might be the single most practical thing you take away from everything we cover together. Why routines work, the science behind the practice. Before we talk about how to build your pressure routine, let's talk about why routines work at a neurological level. Because understanding the mechanism makes you more committed to the practice. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. It is constantly looking for familiar sequences, cause and effect relationships it can rely on to predict what comes next. When you repeat a specific sequence of actions consistently over time, your brain begins to associate that sequence with whatever state reliably follows it. This is called conditioning. And it's the same principle behind why hearing a certain song can instantly transport you back to a specific memory, or why the smell of something baking can make you feel safe and at home before you've even consciously registered what you're smelling. When you build a pressure routine and practice it consistently, in small moments, in medium moments, in training situations, your brain learns to associate that routine with a specific mental and physical state. Calm alertness, focused readiness, composed activation. Then, when you perform that routine before a genuinely high-stakes situation, your brain doesn't have to work to create that state from scratch. It recognizes the sequence and automatically follows it to the destination it's been trained to reach. The routine becomes a doorway. And with enough practice, walking through that doorway takes you exactly where you need to go, every single time. The foundation. Breathing. Every solid pressure routine starts with breath. Not because it's the most glamorous tool in the mental performance toolkit, but because it's the most direct line you have to your nervous system. Here's what most people don't realize. Your breathing pattern is one of the very few physiological processes that operates both automatically and voluntarily. Your heart beats without your input. Your digestion happens without your direction. But your breath, you can choose to control it. And when you do, you directly influence your nervous system's state. Shallow, rapid breathing signals danger to your nervous system. It activates your stress response and makes everything harder: thinking, deciding, performing. Deep, controlled breathing activates your parasympathetic nervous system, the part responsible for calm, clear, composed functioning. In practical terms, you can shift your internal state within 60 seconds through breath alone. That's extraordinary, and most people never use it. Here's the breathing pattern I want you to start with. It's called box breathing, and it's used by everyone from Navy SEALs to concert pianists to emergency room surgeons for one simple reason: it works. Inhale slowly through your nose for a count of 4. Hold at the top for a count of 4. Exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 4. Hold at the bottom for a count of 4. That's 1 cycle. Do 5 cycles. That's roughly 90 seconds. And in those 90 seconds, your nervous system will shift measurably. Your heart rate will begin to slow. Your thinking will begin to clear. The tight, contracted, reactive state of anxiety will begin to open into something more spacious, more controlled, more capable. Practice this every single day, not just when you're stressed, but as a daily ritual. Morning coffee, box breathing. Before bed, box breathing. During an ordinary lunch break, box breathing. The more familiar your nervous system becomes with this pattern in calm moments, the more readily it will follow it in chaotic ones. The physical reset. After your breathing establishes the foundation, the next layer of your pressure routine involves your body, because your physical state and your mental state are not separate. They are in constant bidirectional conversation. The way you hold your body sends signals to your brain about who you are and what you're capable of in this moment. Collapsed posture, shoulders rounded, chest caved, head down, sends a signal of defeat. Your brain receives that signal and responds accordingly, generating thoughts and feelings that match the physical message it's receiving. Open, grounded posture, shoulders back and relaxed, chest open, head level, feet firmly planted, sends a completely different signal, one of readiness, of capability, of presence. This isn't just motivational wisdom. Research consistently shows that your posture influences your hormone levels, your confidence, your cognitive performance, and your emotional state. The physical shapes the mental just as reliably as the mental shapes the physical. So, as part of your pressure routine, take a moment to deliberately reset your body. Roll your shoulders back and let them drop. Not tense, just open. Lift your chin slightly. Plant your feet and feel the ground beneath you. Take up your full space without aggression, just presence. Then add a physical release. Some people clench their fists tightly for 5 seconds and then release completely. The contrast creates a wave of relaxation through the body. Others roll their neck gently from side to side. Others press their feet firmly into the floor and then consciously release the pressure. Find what works for you. The specific movement matters less than the intention behind it, which is to consciously transition your body from the contracted state of anxiety into the open, grounded state of readiness. The mental cue. Once your breath is settled and your body is grounded, your pressure routine needs a mental component. Something that focuses your mind and sets the direction for what comes next. This is where your pressure mantra from the previous chapter comes in, but we're going to add something to it here, something called a mental cue. A mental cue is a specific thought, image, or memory that reliably produces a positive internal state. It might be a memory of a time you performed really well under pressure, something you can call up vividly and feel the confidence of that moment again. It might be a visual image that represents strength or calm to you personally. It might be a simple phrase that carries deep meaning. The key is that it's specific, personal, and practiced. Generic affirmations, I am confident, I am powerful, tend not to work well under real pressure because they're not anchored to anything real in your experience. Your brain doesn't fully believe them because they feel abstract. but a specific memory of a real moment when you genuinely delivered that your brain can access and draw genuine confidence from. It's not manufactured. It's remembered. And remembered confidence is far more stable than invented confidence. So identify your mental cue, a specific moment, a real experience, something that, when you bring it to mind, even briefly, produces a genuine felt sense of capability. Make it part of your routine. After the breathing, after the physical reset, call up that cue. Spend 15 seconds with it. Feel it. Then carry that feeling forward into whatever comes next. The intention setting. The final piece of your pressure routine is often the most overlooked, and it's simply this. Before you walk into the high-stakes situation, set a clear intention for how you want to show up. Not what you want to achieve, not what outcome you're hoping for, how you want to be. There's a meaningful difference between those two things. Outcome intentions. I want to nail this presentation, or I need this to go well. Put your mind in future-focused, outcome-dependent territory, which, as we've already established, is exactly where you don't want it when performance is happening now. Process intentions. I'm going to stay present and trust my preparation, or I'm going to listen deeply and respond honestly, or I'm going to give everything I have to this moment. Keep your mind anchored to what you can actually control. Your behavior, your attention, your attitude. Before your next pressure situation, take 30 seconds and ask yourself, how do I want to show up here? What qualities do I want to bring into this room? Write it down if you can. Say it out loud if that feels right. And then walk through that door carrying that intention like a compass. Something to return to whenever the moment gets hard and your mind starts to drift. Making it yours. Here's what I want you to take away from everything in this chapter. Your pressure routine needs to be genuinely yours. I've given you a framework, breathing, physical reset, mental cue, intention setting. But the specific expressions of each element should fit your personality, your preferences, your history. Some people need movement in their routine, a brief walk, some jumping jacks, a specific gesture. Others need stillness. Some people need words. Others work better with images. Some need 5 minutes. Others can do everything they need in 60 seconds. Experiment. Try different things in low-stakes situations. Pay attention to what actually shifts your state and what feels hollow or performative. Build something that feels natural and personal, because a routine you actually believe in will always outperform one you're just going through the motions of. And then practice it, not just when pressure arrives, every day, in small moments, so that when the big moments come, and they will come, your routine is so deeply familiar that performing it feels less like effort and more like coming home, because that's exactly what it is. It's a way of coming home to yourself, to your best self, to the version of you that is calm and grounded and capable and ready. That version of you already exists. Your routine is just how you find them. Chapter 5. Stay present when everything is pulling you away from this moment. Here's something I want you to really sit with for a moment. The pressure situation you're most afraid of, the one that keeps you up at night, the one that makes your stomach drop when you think about it, is almost certainly not happening right now. It's happening in your mind, in your imagination. In the future, you're constructing with your thoughts. In the past, you're replaying with your memories. But right here, right now, in this actual moment, you are okay. You are breathing. You are capable. You are enough. The tragedy of pressure is not that it makes moments harder. It's that it pulls you out of the only moment where you actually have any power, the present. And learning to stay here, in this breath, in this action, in this exact second, is one of the most transformative skills you will ever develop. Not just for performance under pressure, but for your entire experience of being alive. The time travel problem. Let's name what's actually happening when pressure pulls you away from the present moment, because naming it makes it easier to catch. Your mind is a time traveler, and under pressure, it becomes obsessed with two destinations. The first is the future, specifically the worst possible version of the future. What if I fail? What will they think of me? What happens if this doesn't work out? What if I freeze, stumble, say the wrong thing, make the wrong call? Your mind races forward into territory it can't actually see, constructing catastrophes out of uncertainty, and then responding to those constructions as though they're already real. The second destination is the past. Old failures get replayed. Moments of embarrassment or inadequacy get revisited. Your mind looks for evidence, usually selectively, usually unfairly, that this current moment is going to go just as badly as that old one did. Meanwhile, the actual performance is happening right now, and your mind is somewhere else entirely. This is what we mean when we say that pressure makes people perform below their capabilities. It's not that their skills disappear, it's that their attention does. They're physically present in the situation, but mentally absent from it. And you cannot access capabilities you're not present enough to use. The antidote is not complicated, but it requires practice, patience, and a genuine commitment to returning, again and again and again, to now. Your breath as a home base. If you take nothing else from this chapter, take this. Your breath is always happening now, not in the future, not in the past. Right here, in this body, in this moment, your breath is the most reliable anchor to the present moment that you will ever have access to. And it's with you every second of every day, completely free, requiring no equipment, no special conditions, no perfect circumstances. When you notice your mind time traveling, jumping to frightening futures or painful pasts, your breath is always there to come back to. Not as a technique you have to remember under stress, but as a home base your attention can always find. Here's a simple practice. When you notice you've drifted, you don't fight the drift. You don't berate yourself for having wandered. You simply notice, my mind has left the present moment. And then you take one conscious breath. Feel the air entering your body. Notice the brief pause at the top. Feel the exhale, and you're back. One breath. That's it. That's the whole practice. It sounds almost embarrassingly simple. But if you actually do this consistently in small moments, building the habit until it becomes automatic, you will develop a quality of presence under pressure that most people never access in their entire lives. The spotlight of attention. Here's a metaphor that I find genuinely useful for understanding present moment focus under pressure. Imagine your attention as a spotlight. In any given moment, Wherever that spotlight is pointing is where you actually are, mentally, experientially, functionally. The spotlight can only illuminate one area at a time, and whatever it illuminates is what feels real, what feels urgent, what shapes your emotional state and your performance. Under pressure, most people's spotlight gets hijacked. It gets pulled toward the audience, toward the consequences, toward the opinions of others, toward imagined futures and remembered failures. And because the spotlight is there, in all those places it can't actually influence, it's not here, on the task, on the execution, on the only thing that actually matters right now. The skill of present moment focus is essentially spotlight control. It's the ability to consciously direct your attention to where it needs to be, and to redirect it there quickly whenever it drifts. You are the director of your spotlight, not a passive recipient of wherever it happens to land, but an active, intentional director who gets to choose, with practice, where the light goes. And under pressure, the light needs to go on the task, on this sentence, this movement, this decision, this breath, this next step, not on the crowd, not on the outcome, not on what happened last time or what might happen next time, here, now. This, task decomposition, making the present manageable. One of the reasons pressure pulls people out of the present moment is that the full scope of what they're facing feels overwhelming. The entire presentation, the whole difficult conversation, the complete performance. When your mind tries to hold all of it at once, it becomes too much, and it escapes into time travel just to get away from the enormity. The solution is to make the present moment smaller, more manageable, more specific. This is called task decomposition, and it's one of the most practical tools for maintaining present focus under pressure. Instead of thinking about the entire presentation, think about the opening sentence. Just that. Say it clearly. Then think about the next sentence. Then the next. Break the overwhelming whole into a sequence of entirely manageable nows. And suddenly, the task stops being a mountain. You have to see from base to summit and become simply the next step in front of you. A surgeon in a complex procedure isn't thinking about the entire operation. They're thinking about this suture, then the next one. A rock climber on a difficult face isn't thinking about the summit. They're thinking about this handhold, then the next. The whole thing gets done beautifully, skillfully, completely, one present moment at a time. Whatever you're facing, ask yourself, what is the very next thing that needs to happen? Just the next thing, nothing beyond that. Do that thing, then ask again and again. This isn't small thinking, it's precise thinking. And precise thinking in the present moment will consistently outperform anxious thinking about the future. Sensory grounding, coming back through your body. When your mind is deep in time travel and the gentle reminder to return to your breath isn't cutting through, there's a more powerful technique you can use to pull yourself back into the present moment. It's called sensory grounding, and it works by doing something your mind genuinely cannot do while lost in abstract thought, engaging your actual physical senses with what's actually here, right now, in this real moment. Here's the practice. Wherever you are, whatever is happening, take a brief moment to answer these questions. What are 3 things I can see right now, with specific detail? What are 2 things I can hear? Actually listen for them. What is one thing I can physically feel? The texture of something under my hands, the temperature of the air, the weight of your feet on the floor? This exercise doesn't take long, 30 seconds, maybe less. But in those 30 seconds, your nervous system receives an undeniable signal. This is real. This is now. This is where I actually am. The imagined catastrophes of the future and the painful memories of the past are not present in your sensory experience. They exist only in thought. And when you engage your senses with what's actually here, you give your mind something real to anchor to, something so immediate and concrete that the abstract fears struggle to compete with it. Use this technique as a reset. When you catch yourself deep in anxious future thinking, ground yourself sensorially first. Get present in your body and your environment. Then, from that grounded place, return your attention to the task at hand, accepting that your mind will wander. And that's okay. I want to be really honest with you about something before we close this chapter, because I think it's important, and I don't want you carrying an unrealistic expectation that will only create more pressure. Your mind will wander during pressure situations, even with practice, even with training, even when you're doing everything right. Present moment focus is not a state you achieve and then maintain perfectly. It's a continuous practice of noticing, returning, like training a very energetic, very curious puppy to stay on the path. You don't yell at it for wandering. You don't give up because it wandered again. You calmly, patiently, consistently bring it back. The skill isn't staying present perfectly. The skill is returning quickly when you drift. And here's what's genuinely beautiful about this. Every single time your mind wanders and you bring it back, every single time you notice you've drifted into future fear or past regret and you choose to return to now, you are training your present moment muscle. You are building the neural pathways that make the next return faster, easier, more automatic. The wandering is not failure. The wandering is the training. So be patient with yourself. Be kind with yourself. And keep coming back. Because this moment, right here, right now, this actual living, breathing moment, is the only place your life is actually happening. The only place your performance actually occurs. The only place where you have any real power at all. Come back to it. Again and again and again. That practice, sustained over time, will change not just how you perform under pressure, but how you experience your entire life. Chapter 6. Turn pressure into fuel and never let it drain you again. I want to tell you about two people walking into the same room. Same stakes, same audience, same level of preparation, same amount of sleep the night before, same breakfast that morning. From the outside, they are identical in every measurable way. But inside, completely different worlds. The first person walks in feeling the pressure like a weight on their chest. Every heartbeat feels like a warning. Every surge of adrenaline feels like their body confirming what their mind already feared, that this is dangerous, that something could go terribly wrong, that they might not be enough for this moment. The second person walks in feeling the exact same physical sensations, the same racing heart, the same heightened awareness, the same surge of adrenaline moving through their system. But they feel it differently. They feel it as fuel. And that difference, that single, trainable difference in interpretation, is What separates a performance that shrinks under pressure from one that expands because of it? The energy you've been misreading. Here's something that might genuinely change how you experience pressure from this moment forward. The physiological experience of anxiety and the physiological experience of excitement are, at a biological level, nearly identical. Same elevated heart rate, same heightened sensory awareness, same release of adrenaline and cortisol, same butterflies in the stomach, same quickened breath, same feeling of heightened aliveness. Your body doesn't actually know the difference between the two. What creates the difference is the story your mind tells about what those sensations mean. When your mind says, "These feelings mean danger," the sensations become anxiety. Your body contracts, your thinking narrows, your performance suffers. When your mind says, "These feelings mean I'm activated and ready," the exact same sensations become excitement. Your body expands. Your thinking sharpens. Your performance elevates. This is not wishful thinking. This is not self-deception. This is a genuine psychological phenomenon that researchers call arousal reappraisal. And study after study has shown that people who learn to reinterpret pressure sensations as excitement rather than anxiety perform measurably better across a wide range of high-stakes tasks. You have been misreading your body's signals, not because you're wrong, but because nobody ever gave you the right translation. Your body gearing up before something important is not a malfunction. It is preparation. It is your system saying, with everything it has, "I'm taking this seriously. I'm bringing everything I've got. I am ready." Start reading it that way, deliberately, consistently, until the new reading becomes automatic. The river and the swimmer. I want to give you a metaphor here that I think captures something essential about the relationship between pressure and performance. Imagine a powerful river current, strong, fast, relentless. Now imagine two swimmers entering that water. The first swimmer fights the current, every muscle engaged in resistance, arms churning against the flow, body rigid with effort. They exhaust themselves completely just staying in place. And eventually, inevitably, the current takes them anyway, not because they weren't strong enough, but because they were fighting something they could have worked with. The second swimmer reads the current. They don't resist it. They don't surrender to it either. They learn its rhythm, its direction, its patterns, and then they use it, letting the river's power carry them further and faster than they could ever travel on their own strength alone. Pressure is that river, and most people spend their entire lives fighting it. The question isn't how to stop the current. The question is how to learn to swim with it. Optimal arousal, finding your performance zone. Here's something that elite performers in every field understand that most people don't. The goal under pressure is not to feel calm. Complete calm under pressure actually produces flat, uninspired performance. Too little activation and you're sluggish. Your reactions are slow. Your thinking lacks urgency. You're present but not fully alive to the moment. What you're aiming for is what sports psychologists call optimal arousal, the sweet spot where you're activated enough to be sharp, energized, and fully engaged, but not so activated that you become scattered, tense, and overwhelmed. Think of it like a guitar string, too loose and it produces no sound, no tension, no music. Too tight and it snaps. Too much tension, break down. But tuned to exactly the right tension, it produces something beautiful. Pressure, channeled correctly, tunes you to that right tension. It gives you the activation you need to access your best capabilities. Capabilities that simply aren't available when stakes are low and your system is running at a comfortable idle. The key word is channeled. Left unmanaged, pressure energy becomes anxiety. Directed intentionally, that same energy becomes performance fuel. So how do you direct it? Energy redirection in practice. When you feel the surge of pressure activation, the racing heart, the heightened awareness, the physical intensity of the moment, here's what to do instead of trying to suppress it or fight it down. Name it first, not as anxiety, but as energy. I feel a lot of energy right now. That simple reframe begins the process of working with it rather than against it. Then direct it consciously. If you're about to give a presentation, channel that energy into your voice. Let it give you more power, more presence, more conviction. If you're about to have a difficult conversation, channel it into your attention. Let it make you sharper, more perceptive, more fully present to what the other person is saying. If you're about to compete, channel it into your movement. Let it make you faster, more explosive, more capable. You are not trying to eliminate the energy. You are giving it a job. Think of it like electricity running through a wire. Uncontrolled electricity is dangerous. Directed through the right channel, it powers everything. Your pressure energy works the same way. The sensations themselves are neutral. The direction you give them determines whether they help or hurt you. The competitive advantage nobody talks about. Here's something that took me a long time to fully appreciate, and I want to give it to you directly so you don't have to wait as long. When pressure is high and stakes are real, most people's performance degrades. They contract, they hesitate, they make poor decisions, they perform below their actual capability level. If your performance stays consistent or actually improves under the same conditions, you gain an enormous relative advantage without doing anything differently than you normally would. This is the quiet power of learning to use pressure as fuel. You don't have to be dramatically better than everyone else. You just have to maintain your level while others drop below theirs. And suddenly, in the moments that matter most, you appear to rise, not because you did something extraordinary, but because you did something ordinary while others fell short of it. Pressure creates a sorting mechanism. It separates the prepared from the unprepared, the trained from the untrained, the people who've done the inner work from the people who've only done the outer work. And here's what that means for you. Every hour you invest in developing your ability to channel pressure as fuel is an investment that pays dividends specifically in the highest stakes moments. The bigger the moment, the greater the return on that investment. That's not just training. That's compound interest on your courage. Pressure seeking, the practice that changes everything. Once you genuinely begin to experience pressure as fuel, once you feel firsthand how activation can sharpen your thinking and elevate your performance, something remarkable starts to happen. You stop avoiding pressure, and you start seeking it, not masochistically, not recklessly, but intentionally, strategically. because you've learned through direct experience that pressure is where you grow, where you prove yourself, where you access capabilities that comfort never reaches. This is the practice of pressure seeking, and it's one of the most powerful accelerators of mental performance development available to you. It looks like this. You deliberately put yourself in situations that carry genuine stakes. You volunteer for the challenging project. You sign up for the public speaking opportunity that scares you. You have the difficult conversation you've been avoiding. You enter the competition you don't feel ready for. You raise your hand when your instinct says to keep it down. Not all at once. Gradually, progressively, starting with situations that carry mild pressure and building toward ones that carry more. Like progressive overload in physical training, you don't start by lifting your maximum weight. You start where you are and build systematically. Each successful navigation of a pressure situation does two things simultaneously. It builds your practical skill at channeling pressure as fuel, and it builds your confidence, real, earned, evidence-based confidence, in your ability to handle the next one. Over time, something profound shifts. You don't just handle pressure better. You begin to actually look forward to high-stakes moments, because those are the moments when you feel most alive, most capable, most fully yourself. Pressure stops being the thing you dread. It becomes the thing you've been training for. A note on self-compassion. Before we close this chapter, I want to say something that doesn't always make it into conversations about mental performance. You will not get this right every time. There will be pressure situations where you misread the energy, where the anxiety wins, where you fight the current and exhaust yourself and still get swept away. And that's okay. Learning to use pressure as fuel is not a linear journey. It has setbacks. It has moments where all the training feels like it disappeared. It has days where, despite everything you know, the pressure still knocks you flat. Those moments are not failures. They are part of the process. They are data points. They are opportunities to learn something specific about where your training needs more work. Be as compassionate with yourself in those moments as you would be with someone you love who was learning something genuinely difficult. You wouldn't tell a friend learning to swim that they're a failure because they swallowed water. You'd remind them that swallowing water is part of learning to swim. The same applies here. Struggling with pressure sometimes is part of learning to master it. Keep going. Keep practicing. Keep choosing again and again to work with the energy rather than against it. Because on the other side of that practice is something worth every difficult moment of getting there. A mind that doesn't just survive pressure. A mind that comes alive because of it. Chapter 7. Make pressure your permanent advantage and become someone who rises when everything is on the line. We've come a long way together. We've talked about why pressure breaks people and why that was never really about weakness. We've talked about the mindset shifts that transform pressure from enemy to ally. We've talked about training your thoughts, building your routine, staying present, and channeling pressure as fuel. And now we arrive at the final chapter, the one that ties everything together, the one that answers the question underneath all the other questions. Not just, how do I handle pressure? But How do I become someone who thrives because of it? Permanently, consistently, in every area of my life? That's what this chapter is about. And I want you to feel the weight of what we're stepping into together here. Because this is not just about performance. This is about identity, about who you decide to be, about the kind of person you're committed to becoming. From surviving to thriving, the final shift. There's a version of everything we've covered so far that stays at the level of technique. Breathe this way. Think this thought. Use this routine. Redirect this energy. And those techniques matter. They genuinely work. But techniques alone will only take you so far. Because techniques are things you do. And what we're talking about now is something you become. The difference between someone who occasionally handles pressure well and someone who consistently thrives under pressure is not the quantity of techniques they know. It's the depth of their identity. Champions don't just have pressure skills. They have a pressure identity. They don't just do things that help them perform under pressure. They are someone who performs under pressure. That identity is so deeply embedded in who they are that pressure situations don't feel like exceptional circumstances requiring special effort. They feel like home. And here's the most important thing I want you to understand about identity. It's not something you discover, it's something you build. Through every choice you make, through every challenge you either face or avoid, through every moment of pressure you either lean into or run from, you are building your pressure identity right now, whether you're conscious of it or not. The question is whether you're building it deliberately. Unshakable confidence. What it actually is. Let's talk about confidence under pressure because I think there's a widespread misunderstanding about what real confidence actually looks like, and that misunderstanding is keeping a lot of genuinely capable people from accessing the performance they're capable of. Most people think confidence means certainty, knowing you'll succeed. Feeling no doubt, being sure of the outcome before it happens. And by that definition, confidence under pressure is almost impossible, because pressure situations are inherently uncertain. You can't know the outcome. You can't guarantee success. And if your confidence depends on certainty, pressure will destroy it every time. Real confidence, the kind that holds under pressure, is something entirely different. It's not certainty about outcomes. It's certainty about yourself. It's knowing that whatever happens, whether you succeed or fail, whether things go according to plan or completely sideways, you will respond with intelligence, with resilience, with everything you have. It's confidence in your capacity to handle whatever comes, not confidence in your ability to control what comes. This kind of confidence can't be shaken by unexpected challenges, because unexpected challenges are exactly what it was built for. And here's how you build it. Not through affirmations alone, not through visualizing only success, but through what I call the confidence bank. Every time you face something difficult and show up anyway, you make a deposit. Every time pressure arrives and you use your routine instead of collapsing, you make a deposit. Every time you make a mistake and recover with grace rather than spiraling, you make a deposit. Every time you choose the harder path because it's the one that matters, you make a deposit. Over time, that bank builds. And when pressure arrives and doubt creeps in, as it always will, you can draw on that account. You have real, concrete personal evidence that you can handle hard things. Not because someone told you that you could, because you've done it before, repeatedly, deliberately, under real conditions. That's unshakable confidence, built one difficult moment at a time. Learning from pressure, failures, the skill that makes you bulletproof. Here's something I need to say directly, because it matters and because our culture doesn't say it enough. You are going to fail under pressure sometimes, possibly badly, possibly publicly, possibly in ways that hurt and embarrass and make you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. And those moments will be among the most valuable experiences of your entire life, if you know how to use them. Pressure failures are not setbacks on the path to mental toughness. They are part of the path. They are, in many cases, the most important part of the path. Because pressure failures reveal things about your mental game that success never could. They show you exactly where your training has gaps. They give you a precise map of where to build next. The champions who seem unbreakable under pressure, most of them trace their mental toughness back to specific, devastating failures. Moments when the pressure won, when they froze or crumbled or fell apart in front of people who were watching. Moments they would have given anything to avoid. And then, because they had the courage and the wisdom to look honestly at what happened, they used those moments to become stronger than they'd ever been before. This is what psychologists call anti-fragility, the property of systems that don't just survive stress and disorder, they actually improve because of it. They get stronger, not despite the pressure, but because of it. Your mind can become anti-fragile, but only if you're willing to examine your failures honestly, extract the specific lessons they contain, and use that information to deliberately strengthen the areas they revealed as weak. After every significant pressure experience that doesn't go the way you wanted, give yourself time to process the emotions first, fully and without judgment. Then sit down and ask yourself these questions. What specifically happened? Not generally, specifically. At what moment did things start to go wrong? What was I thinking then? What was I feeling? What did I do? And what would have served me better? Then, and this is crucial, update your training. Don't just analyze and move on. Take the specific lesson this failure taught you and turn it into a specific practice. If you discovered that your breathing breaks down under extreme pressure, add more breathing practice to your routine. If you discovered that mistakes send you into a spiral, practice mistake flushing deliberately and repeatedly. If you discovered that your mind catastrophizes when stakes are highest, work specifically on thought redirection in high-pressure training situations. Failure plus analysis plus updated practice equals growth. Every single time. Pressure instincts. When all of this becomes automatic, there's a level of pressure mastery beyond technique, beyond deliberate practice, beyond conscious application of everything we've covered. It's the level where your responses to pressure become instinctive, where you don't have to remember to breathe correctly, you just breathe correctly, where you don't have to consciously redirect your thoughts, they redirect automatically, where your routine doesn't feel like a routine, it feels like just how you are, where the sight of a high-stakes situation doesn't trigger a sequence of mental techniques. It triggers a state, immediately, automatically, reliably. This is what happens when you practice long enough and consistently enough. The skills move from conscious to unconscious, from effortful to effortless, from things you do to things you are. And when that happens, when your pressure responses become genuinely instinctive, something remarkable occurs. Your mind is freed. Instead of using cognitive resources to manage your pressure response, those resources are now available for what actually matters, for strategy, for creativity, for connection, for execution at the highest level. You stop thinking about how to handle the pressure, and you start thinking about how to win. This is the destination, and it's reached through one thing and one thing only: consistent, deliberate, patient practice over time. There is no shortcut. There is no hack. There is just the daily choice to train your mind in small moments, in ordinary challenges, in the quiet spaces where nobody is watching, so that when the big moments arrive, your mind already knows exactly what to do. Making pressure your permanent competitive advantage. Let me bring this all the way home now. Everything we've covered in these 7 chapters, the mindset shifts, the thought training, the pressure routine, the present moment practice, the energy channeling, the confidence building, the failure learning, all of it points toward one destination: a life where pressure is your advantage, not occasionally, not when you remember to apply techniques, permanently, structurally, as a fundamental feature of who you are and how you move through the world. While others are hoping their best self shows up under pressure, you've trained your best self to show up. While others are trying to avoid high-stakes situations, you're seeking them out because you know that's where you perform best relative to everyone around you. While others are drained by pressure, you're energized by it. This is not arrogance. This is preparation meeting opportunity. This is what happens when someone takes their mental training as seriously as their professional development. When they invest in their inner game with the same dedication they invest in their outer skills. And the beautiful thing is this: the mental skills you develop through pressure training don't stay in one lane. They transfer. The composure you build in professional pressure situations becomes composure in personal ones. The present moment focus you develop in high-stakes performance becomes presence in your relationships. The confidence you build through facing challenges becomes the foundation of how you see yourself across every area of your life. You don't just become better under pressure, you become better. Period. The decision that makes everything possible. I want to close this with something simple, something that cuts through all the complexity and brings everything back to where it has to begin. A decision, not a hope, not an intention, not a wish. A decision. The decision to take your mental training seriously, to treat your mind with the same respect and care and deliberate development that elite performers treat their physical skills, to commit, genuinely, sustainably commit, to the daily practice of building a mind that doesn't just survive pressure but uses it. That decision won't always feel easy to honor. There will be days when training your mind feels less urgent than everything else demanding your attention. There will be moments when the old patterns feel stronger than the new ones. There will be pressure situations where you fall short of everything you know you're capable of. And on those days, in those moments, I want you to remember something. You are not starting from zero. You are building something. Every single day, whether or not you can see the progress yet, you are building. Every breath practice, every thought redirection, every moment of choosing presence over panic, every difficult situation you face instead of avoid, it's all going into the foundation of something that will serve you for the rest of your life. The mind you're building right now, patient rep by patient rep, challenge by challenge, pressure situation by pressure situation, is the mind that will be there for you when everything is on the line, when the stakes couldn't be higher, when the moment that defines the chapter of your life arrives, and it will arrive. Those moments always do. The question is whether you'll be ready. You're building ready right now with everything you've taken in through these pages, with every moment of honest reflection, with every commitment to practice what you've learned rather than just knowing it. That's the work, and you're already doing it. So go meet your pressure, not with dread, not with avoidance, with open hands and a trained mind and the quiet, unshakable knowledge that you've prepared for exactly this. The pressure was never your enemy. It was always your invitation. And now, finally, you know how to answer it.